Inc., the business of Shaquille O'Neal. And so I just recently interviewed him, and I actually asked him about Caitlin Clark, and he had an interesting take on it, which he said the tension in the league right now is not racially motivated tension, it's not political tension, it's a rite of passage that she is going to be the face of the league, but the existing veteran players are not going to let her until she basically goes through this on-the-court hazing ritual.
What if one hard foul could expose a much bigger problem inside the WNBA? Because what happened between Sophie Cunningham and DJ Carrington was supposed to be just another heated basketball moment. Instead, it exploded into a debate about officiating, physicality, social media, race, Caitlin Clark, and even the future direction of the league. And the most controversial part? The foul itself may not have been the moment that changed everything. It was what happened after the whistle.
Take a walk with me, take a walk with me, take a walk with me. There is craziness going on in the WNBA. DJ Carrington tweeted out white privilege from the locker room of a game that she was playing in. Get this, she fouled Sophie Cunningham hard. Sophie Cunningham, obviously a white person, fouled her hard. Flagrant 2, gets ejected, goes to the locker room and tweets out white privilege in the middle of the game. Now here's the kicker to me. A flagrant 2 has to be contact that can lead to an injury that looks excessive. DJ, it was about as excessive as possible. If there was any evidence of there being white privilege, this was not it. What the hell do y'all think?
The game was already physical when Sophie Cunningham found herself involved in a transition play with DJ Carrington defending her. Carrington came across with heavy contact. Cunningham went down hard, and almost immediately, the entire atmosphere changed. The officials reviewed the play. The foul was upgraded to a flagrant 2. Carrington was ejected. But that was only the beginning, because after heading toward the locker room, Carrington posted the words "white privilege" on social media and tagged the Indiana Fever.
He's gonna go walking in for a layup, and so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the net.
Stephanie White, we shouldn't be surprised. This is somebody who has come out and admitted publicly that she's uneducated on the difference between male and female. She's uneducated on. So are we really surprised that this is Stephanie White's thought process here? I've been saying Steph needs to be fired for over a year. The reason she never defends Caitlin is because she agrees with the rough play. In fact, she taught DJ and AT how to play this way.
Suddenly, fans were no longer talking only about basketball. They were asking a completely different question. Was this really about race? Or was this simply a brutally physical basketball play that had spiraled into something much bigger? And according to Shaquille O'Neal, there may be another explanation for why moments like this keep happening around Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. Shaq recently discussed the growing tension surrounding Clark and suggested that what people are seeing is not necessarily political or racial tension. Instead, he described it as a kind of basketball rite of passage. In his view, Clark is becoming the face of the league, but established veterans are not simply going to hand her that position. She has to earn it on the court. And that means surviving the physicality, pressure, and intensity that come with becoming the league's biggest star. That perspective adds another layer to what happened between Cunningham and Carrington. Because physical basketball is nothing new. Hard fouls happen. Players compete aggressively. Defenders challenge shots. And sometimes, a basketball play goes wrong. But there is a line. The difficult part is deciding exactly where that line exists. That is what made the Cunningham incident so controversial. Some commentators believed Carrington was attempting to make a legitimate basketball play. Carrington had made similar transition blocks throughout her career, and from that perspective, the argument was simple. She was trying to stop a fast break. The problem was the way Cunningham went down. The contact looked dangerous. Instead of simply challenging the ball, Carrington made heavy contact with Cunningham's upper body, sending her crashing toward the floor. Cunningham immediately got back up and moved toward Carrington. Teammates and security stepped in before the confrontation could become something even worse. Carrington eventually headed toward the tunnel, but the crowd reaction continued. And then came the social media post. That changed the entire story. Instead of fans debating whether the foul deserved a flagrant 1 or flagrant 2, they were suddenly debating whether race had anything to do with the incident at all. Critics argued that the phrase white privilege had nothing to do with what happened on the court. Supporters of Carrington saw the situation differently. They argued that the post reflected frustration and the larger environment surrounding the game. And this is where the controversy became almost impossible to contain. Because once social media enters the conversation, the whistle no longer ends the play. The internet keeps it alive. Every replay becomes evidence. Every reaction becomes another headline. Every old controversy gets dragged back into the discussion. And that's exactly what happened here. People began bringing up previous debates involving Caitlin Clark and officiating. One issue referenced in the discussion was Clark's technical foul situation and the possibility of suspension after accumulating technical fouls. That brought back an argument that has followed the WNBA for some time. Are players being judged consistently? That question may actually be bigger than Cunningham versus Carrington, because several basketball voices have argued that the league's biggest problem isn't necessarily physicality. It is inconsistency. A play that produces one result in one game can produce something completely different in another. One night, a hard foul might be treated as normal basketball. Another night, similar contact could lead to a flagrant 1. And in an extreme situation, it could become a flagrant 2 and an ejection. For players, that uncertainty creates frustration. For fans, it creates suspicion. And for a league growing rapidly under enormous attention, that can become dangerous. The WNBA is no longer operating under the same level of scrutiny it had years ago. Every major game is watched closely. Every Caitlin Clark moment becomes a talking point. Every confrontation can spread across social media within minutes. And when a controversial decision happens, millions of people can form an opinion before the players have even left the court. That means officiating has become part of the story. Not just the result, not just the statistics, the calls themselves. And that creates a serious challenge for the league. Because the goal cannot simply be to make everyone happy. That is impossible. Officials will always make mistakes. Players will always disagree with calls. Coaches will always complain. Fans will always believe their team was treated unfairly. The real goal is consistency. Players need to understand what the standard is. Coaches need to understand it. Fans need to understand it. And when a decision looks different from something that happened previously, the league needs to be able to explain why. Without that clarity, every controversial play becomes part of a much larger narrative. And that is exactly what happened with Cunningham and Carrington. The foul became connected to Caitlin Clark. It became connected to previous officiating controversies. It became connected to race. It became connected to social media. And eventually, it became connected to the broader question of what people actually want from the WNBA. Interestingly, Shaquille O'Neal offered another perspective on that issue. Shaq argued that the WNBA already has many of the ingredients needed to build an elite basketball product. Shooters, ball handlers, finesse, skill. But the conversation around the league isn't only about basketball ability anymore. It's about entertainment, drama, personalities, rivalries, and enormous personalities such as Caitlin Clark have made the spotlight much brighter. That doesn't necessarily mean the drama is bad. In fact, drama can be part of what makes sports entertaining. The problem is when the drama begins to overshadow the actual game. A competitive league needs physicality. It needs emotion. It needs rivalries. Players shouldn't be expected to play like they're afraid of contact. But there is an important distinction between intense competition and reckless contact. And that distinction has to be enforced consistently. Otherwise, every future foul involving a high-profile player becomes another argument about fairness. And that's where the WNBA could find itself in trouble. Because once fans stop trusting the standard, even the correct call can become controversial. Imagine an official making the right decision tomorrow. If fans remember a completely different decision from last season, they may still believe the official got it wrong. That's how trust works. It takes a long time to build, and one controversial moment can damage it surprisingly quickly. There is another important lesson here too. Social media has completely changed the aftermath of sports controversies. Players now have direct access to millions of fans. They don't have to wait for a press conference. They don't have to wait for reporters. They can post their thoughts immediately. But that power comes with a price. An emotional post made minutes after an ejection can become part of the story forever. The emotions disappear. The post remains. And once the internet has chosen sides, the original incident can become almost impossible to separate from the surrounding narrative. That's why the Cunningham-Carrington incident matters. Not because one hard foul will define the WNBA. It won't. But because it represents a much bigger challenge facing the league. How do you grow a sport while keeping the competition intense? How do you protect players without taking physicality out of basketball? How do you handle superstar attention without making every incident about one player? And most importantly, how do you convince everyone that the rules apply equally? Those questions won't be answered by one game. They won't be answered by one suspension, and they certainly won't be answered by social media arguments. They will be answered by what happens next. When these teams meet again, fans won't just be watching the scoreboard. They'll be watching the physicality. They'll be watching the officials. They'll be watching Cunningham. They'll be watching Carrington. And, of course, they'll be watching Caitlin Clark. Because once a controversy reaches this level, every future moment carries extra weight. A normal defensive play could suddenly become a headline. A hard screen could become another debate. A technical foul could reignite an old argument. That is the reality of the modern WNBA. The league is growing. The audience is growing. The stars are becoming bigger. And the scrutiny is becoming much greater. That growth is a good thing. But it also means the margin for inconsistency is getting smaller. The Cunningham-Carrington incident may eventually disappear from the headlines. Another game will come. Another rivalry will develop. Another controversial call will probably happen. But the underlying issue will remain. Professional basketball is supposed to be physical. It is supposed to be emotional. It is supposed to matter. The challenge is making sure that intensity never becomes more important than the standard used to control it. Because one controversial foul can create a viral moment. One social media post can create a national debate. But only consistent officiating, accountability, and clear standards can determine whether that controversy becomes just another chapter in WNBA history or the beginning of a much bigger problem. And that's the real story here. Not simply Sophie Cunningham. Not simply DJ Carrington. Not simply Caitlin Clark. It's about a league entering a completely new era, where every whistle is louder, every replay is analyzed, and every mistake can become a national conversation. The WNBA has never had more attention. Now it has to prove that it can handle it. And the next time the whistle blows, millions of people will be watching to see exactly what happens.